Senator Tillis.
Mr. Chair, before my time starts, can I make a parliamentary inquiry?
Certainly.
I want to make sure that we get this right, because I'm not an attorney, but I think it's pretty important to suggest that according to Mr. Warsh, he has signed an agreement that is in compliance, provided that he executes the agreement.
Correct.
So we should not have into the record that he is before us out of compliance, because you stipulated that what Senator Warren said was a first of a kind here, but he is not out of compliance. He has agreement that if he executes, will be in compliance. That's why he's properly before us. And I just want to make sure for the record that that is clear.
Yeah, very clear. Let me just say it. I'm going to reiterate what you just said, but I was writing it down myself. The Office of Government Ethics has entered into an agreement with Kevin Warsh that he has up until 90 days after confirmed to divest of his assets.
So the word, I mean, to non-attorneys here, I heard someone say he's before us out of compliance, and that's why I checked with the staff to be absolutely certain. He is properly before us. He will be in compliance if he executes agreement that addresses the concerns that have been presented by some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle. I just want to confirm for the record that that is in fact accurate.
So if we're doing a matter here of, is this parliamentary inquiry? Is that what this is?
I've made a parliamentary inquiry, so I'm not burning my time on something that I thought felt like a cheap shot to say he's out of compliance when in fact he's not.
Then I'd like to ask the other question, and that is, have we seen this agreement? Do we have any way to verify that, in fact, these sales will occur if we have no idea what's in them and no one has told? And let's remember the law for a minute. The Fed, unlike other parts of government, do not have a 90-day you can be out of compliance. Fed law is explicit that you cannot own any portion of a financial interest in a bank.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, excuse me for interrupting. Senator,
now I'm going to let the attorneys take over.
Are we going to all get extra time here?
No.
I'd like extra 3 minutes.
All right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I just, for the record, and the only reason I say
that was a parliamentary inquiry, so it doesn't count.
Yeah. But,
okay.
Mr. Chair, the reason I mentioned that is because you had stipulated it. I don't think you meant it this way, but you as a chair said that this is the first of a kind of someone being out of compliance. I don't think you meant that. I wanted to make sure it was clear for the record.
Well, let me just be very clear again. The career ethics professionals were the ones that sent Mr. Warsh's signed paperwork to this committee's chief clerk. They would not have done so if they did not come to an ethics agreement with Mr. Warsh. Mr. Kennedy, Senator Kennedy does raise a good point. We are going to stick to our timeline, and I appreciate you raising the point of how long an inquiry can go on, and that does not buy you more time unless, of course, we all decide we want more time. And then I would rule on that, and I would rule against it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Warsh, congratulations. You can't count this as a date with Jane, particularly this one. I think probably the first hearing was a little less acrimonious. I'm not going to ask you anything. You can take a break and get ready for the bludgeoning on the other side. They're going to beat you till you bleed, and then they're going to beat you for bleeding. I'm going to talk about what's preventing me from being in a position to vote for you until we've spent time together in my office. You have extraordinary credentials. They're impeccable. I think the way you're dealing with the ethics issue is strong. Problem I have is where we are right now. And I start by saying I loved your opening statement. I love your focus on the independence of the Fed. I love the idea of Fed independence with respect to achieving the dual mandate, but Fed transparency on so many other things that the Fed does that, frankly, we're all frustrated with, bank examination, supervision being some among them that I think we should have more insight into. Mr. Chair, I'd like to submit for the record 2 executive orders under President Trump, one in 2020 and one in 2025, talking about making federal architecture beautiful again, and focusing on trying to preserve the integrity of old buildings.
Without objection.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, I will be submitting an analysis, but if we can go to slide 2 and turn it up right. Much has been made about the building project that has Chair Powell under investigation. I'm not going to get into the details except to say that I used to work for a firm that did audit and compliance, so I'm naturally wired to go back from the ground up and figure out what the deal is. Here's what I know. The Martin building has been conflated into this project to make it a $4 billion building. Even if you put the Martin building in, it's a $3 billion building. The reality is, what we're talking about is the Eccles building and the East building, for which, bring that up higher, Jack, you're a tall guy so people can see it. These are the overruns. And these overruns occurred in part because the cost of inputs went up 69% since the original estimate. Asbestos was identified. Remediation was required. Pylons had to be built underneath the building because it turns out they used it as a landfill and they had a water table issue. There were a variety of reasons why this building went over budget. And as a matter of fact, if we put everybody in prison in federal government that had a budget go over, we'd have to reserve an area roughly the size of Texas for a penal colony because of the way government projects work. And the reality is the overage, inflation adjusted, was about $730 million, the majority of which seems to be legitimate. Next slide. Not acceptable, unfortunate, but legitimate. Now, what I've really got a problem with, and we're talking about Fed independence. By the way, I think you're going to be independent. You have to be. You got to convince 11 other people to vote with you, at least a majority. It's a consensus organization. You try to get the majority to. Most of these votes are 11-1. So if anybody thinks the president can appoint somebody and you unilaterally can control things, you're going to be an unsuccessful chair if history is any guide, and you've served under some of the best. So I know you're going to do it right. The problem that I have here is that we had some U.S. attorney with a dream, or assistant U.S. attorney, thinking it would be cute to bring Chair Powell under an investigation just a few months before the position was going to be open. This happened this year. Normal course and speed. Here's how it works at the Fed. May the 15th, the term would have expired. We'd be having this hearing. You'd be getting confirmed. Custom also suggests that the sitting chair, even though he has 2 years left on his term, would have exited. But instead, we have somebody who thinks a building project that went over by about $700 million with a lot of what seemed to be justifications for it are holding up this whole process. It sounds like to me somebody over in the DOJ didn't even check with the boss. The boss said on the same night that I said I can't go forward until this bogus investigation is done with, said he didn't know anything about it. So we've got people in DOJ over in the D.C. circuit or the D.C. district doing these investigations. We have got to end this investigation. Big DOJ didn't know about it. The president didn't know about it. Let's get rid of this investigation so I can support your confirmation. Mr. Warsh, the only thing I've found the least bit odd about you is you've never watched an episode of Seinfeld. You've spent so much time at being a rock-solid economist that you're not even taking time away for a little laugh like that. I look forward to supporting your nomination, and I look forward to this investigation being taken down. If the chair wants to have all of our subcommittees start looking at capital expenditure projects for the agencies that we're overseeing, I think that's a great idea. And I'd like to be on a committee specifically drilling down on this analysis. If somebody can prove me wrong, I'd be happy to make a criminal referral. But I don't have the D.C. Circuit tell me a crime was committed when 7 members on this committee said it wasn't, including the chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome.